key points that Leslie has already prepared, so it's all good. So thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly today on the achievements of the Safe Communities project over 2021-22. The Safe Communities Steering Group of 27 agencies is chaired by myself, remains a strong coalition, also drawing in other agencies via its working group level. There are a number of working groups working on the projects in the 5-year strategy and annual business plan, and they report back bi-monthly to the steering group. The project's focuses are determined by the data stats, and for example, we found out, or we were told last year, that the #1 injury in Mccannery over winter is for children 5 to 14-year-olds from snowboarding and skiing. So that's something that we hadn't realised before. We thought it was all sort of rugby netball, and so that's determined some of the projects going forward. Also, local community consultation and discussion with agencies like police about community safety issues. Only working together will affect change long term. These issues are too big and too complex to be solved by often small agencies working alone, so we need to work together to get this work done. We aim to create and leave independently managed lasting legacy projects for the district. And I'd like to thank Leslie for all the work that she does, and also Councillor Rawlinson, who attends all our meetings and has done for the last few years. Great to have your support. So the key achievements of year 3 of our 5-year strategy, so these are the downs. So our Mid-Canterbury Connector Community Transport Service, the numbers were impaired by COVID. The number of older people participating in strength and balance classes are down as people were fearing to go out. We weren't able to have our safety village at the Ashburton AMP show. Our child unintentional injury program, which is called Safe Kids Toolkit, is on hold as community programs like Plunkett closed, and our planned collaborations have been delayed, impacted by agency staff illnesses or secondment elsewhere, but we do have quite a few ups. So the positives are the Mid-Canterbury Connector, which is a community vehicle. Trust purchased its own vehicle, and from March numbers using the service began to climb. We have new community awareness campaigns, one which is the theft and burglary, and following advice from police, Safe Communities collaborated with police, Mid-Canterbury Neighbourhood Support and Ashburton Men's Shed to make the community more aware of how to prevent theft, burglary from homes, vehicles and tool theft. And the Neighbourhood Support Community talks and uptake of the Men's Shed tool engraving service was slightly impacted by COVID, but still had a number of people turn up. We had a scams and frauds campaign, so again with Neighbourhood Support, Police, the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Library, Digital Waitaha and Safe Communities. There was a lot of concern around the number of scams and frauds, and we've all seen them, the texts, the emails, etc., particularly targeting older people. So we focused on encouraging people not to be embarrassed and to ring a local safe agency such as CAB or the library to talk it over. And that's been really good to collaborate with Neighbourhood Support and Police on these campaigns. We had a parenting needs service together with ACAD's Community and Public Health, Plunkett and Safe Communities, and surveyed a number of parents to identify the positives of parenting in Ashburton District, as well as any gaps in the services. And the key gaps identified by parents were access to information, difficulties navigating services and delays at being seen. So there's an action plan being developed, and the Safer Mid-Canterbury and CAB are updating and reprinting the Helping Hands booklet. We've also done some motorcycle and scooter safety, and that's with ACC and Council, promoting Motorcycle Awareness Month, and also developed a cycle scooter safety promotion aimed at primary and intermediate schools, where students take part in a helmet design competition with a safety design message. We've trialled that at one school over winter, and we'll be launching that again in spring. So the planned projects for 2022-23 are everything I've just talked about, plus some action safety initiatives from the parenting research. We're doing a snow ski safety promotion with ACC and Mount Hutt. In fact, I'm going to 3 schools on next Monday to speak to the children with the ACC coordinator about snow safety. Promote national water safety messages in the summer with Water Safety NZ, EA Network Centre and ACC, and a campaign on road crashes due to alcohol drug impairment, focusing on 20 to 29-year-olds with road safety, ACADS and ACC. In conclusion, thank you to the Council and ACC for the support of our program. Any questions? That was a lot of information.
Thank you. Councillor Falloon's going to interrogate you,
I think
Madam Chair.
Maybe the Mayor might be first, so I can see his light on.
Oh, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, thanks Liz for the presentation. It was well done. Just looking at the contribution to the development of feasibility study for possible off-road cycle skills. What's that mean?
So that was, that's the idea of having a little area set aside for children to learn to ride their bikes and learn road safety in a safe area. And so that initially came up as one of our Safe Communities projects, and then I think there was quite a bit of chatter out in the community where someone thought that we needed one. It's come to Council. Steve may be able to give an update, but I think it's just something that
just needs to be marked on an old asphalt surface somewhere.
It does, yes. So Leslie's been in contact with the road safety manager here to discuss how that can go further. I think there may be some service clubs who are interested in doing that, and just need a location, I think.
It's needed sooner rather than later.
Yes,
yep.
And we've also heard that it's not just something for little kids to learn road safety. It's also a really good tool for former refugees who don't know our road rules, so they can actually come around and ride their bikes and learn how it all works as well.
Thanks.
Councillor Falloon. Oh, Councillor Lamb-Brown. Sorry. You beat Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Les, can I go to the Mccannery connector?
Yes.
How is it working? And the reason I'm asking, I was getting a bit bored last night, so I was checking the mileage for the amount of people using it and the cost.
Yep. Is
it worth doing, or should we be looking at something else?
I don't know what else you could look at, to be honest. So it's funded by ECAN and Waka Kotahi, and I think that's around 10,000 per annum. So it's rated to everyone who lives outside the Ashburton Township boundary. So a couple of dollars, I think, for most ratepayers. Yeah. It's used. It was affected by COVID. We're told that we need to probably charge a little bit more to make it worthwhile, but in the end I think we need to encourage people to use it. We're currently working on a marketing campaign to get more people on board. At the moment, most of our customers, I suppose you call them, are from Methven, and they're coming into Ashburton for doctor's appointments. Some of them are actually they're doing Chertsey Book Barn, so they're going from Methven out to Chertsey Book Barn there for a couple of hours and then home. So the main idea was to combat isolation, so people who can't drive can get somewhere to visit their friends or to just wander around the shops in Ashburton and see people instead of being stuck at home.
Yeah.
It needs more time, I think. I don't think it's worth scrapping just yet.
I like what's happening, but just looking at the cost,
Yes.
to me it's completely out of kilter. Now it's $130 per person, wherever they want to go, and it's just worked out on 83 cents of mileage, not thinking about the cost of the car and the bits and pieces. Okay, it might be Econ is paying it, but we're still paying Econ. There must be other ways that we can go forward.
Then it'd be great for the council to promote it. So the councillors out there promote it. It's a service that is necessary, and COVID has really hit us hard with that. We had a trial for 6 months, and we trialled it just on using certain days for the connector. The feedback we got was no, that we needed to operate 5 days a week. We're getting more and more people on it. It's just that COVID, the people who would have used it are elderly people, and they didn't feel comfortable getting in a van and going somewhere. I know it doesn't look good now. Give us another year.
And more money. No, it's. I like it, but I think it doesn't feel right. $130 for every person going wherever they want to go.
Sometimes there's 2 or 3 people in the vehicle, though.
But I'm just looking at the people. 45 people.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Had a false start, sorry.
Just following up on what Lane was saying, you've got passengers transported 45. Is that 45 people who are regularly using the service, or is that just 45 people who have used it once type thing?
I wouldn't say once, so that would be reoccurring people as well. So it would be the total number who have used it, but some of those people use it every 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another subject, you say you're having training programs for motorcycles and motor scooters. Is there anything on the horizon about having training programs for kids with e-scooters? Because I get sick of the little buggers going by down the footpath type thing. And how safe are they, and can we do anything about it?
We haven't. So the motorcycle and scooter safety is run by ACC. It's their nationwide campaign that they do every spring when people get back on their motorbikes again. So I haven't heard anything about e-scooters, but maybe that's something we could tag. Yeah.
I mean, could it be mentioned to ACC that there could be a potential problem?
Yep.
And my last question comes down to the rising influence of gangs in Ashburton. Has there been any attempt at communication made with them? Because obviously they've got families and kids involved, and is there problems, and can we be doing something to try and help?
Probably something more directed to the police, but we haven't had anything like that come to our meetings.
Councillor Lovett.
Just asking about, could there be a program put in place or advertising? Sitting at the supermarket yesterday selling raffle tickets, and a lot of people wearing their mask, and just conversations with them. They're too scared to take them off, some people, especially the older ones, in case they're going to catch COVID and it's not safe. And I'm wondering, could there be a program or advertising just to say to people, COVID's got, leave COVID behind and get out now and start enjoying the space, because I think we kind of need to encourage these people to leave their houses and start communicating with other people. and there's really nothing out there in this space, I don't think, at the moment, giving them a will to, to leave, put down their masks and come and join society again.
I suppose we're only in our second day of having no masks, so, except for some people. But yes, I mean, we hope that there'll be more people jumping on the community connector. There'll be more people coming to the balance classes and getting out and about. And of course, yes, we're nearly into spring, so it's a time when people should be starting to come out. So I mean, we do that through our the different agencies will be doing that.
It's just telling people it's safe to come out.
Yep.
Don't sit there thinking you're going to get hit with COVID. There is a life to live, and I think we kind of need to give them that permission and advocate to come out and join society again, because some very frightened people out there, especially the very elderly.
Okay, Councillor Cameron.
With regards to the programs, and I know it's probably not at the steering group level, and it's probably more for you, Kevin, and tell me, Mr. Chair, if I need to, delay the question, but are they reviewed frequently? Like, the falls reduction program, and there's been not many attendees, and you attribute that to COVID, which may or may not be the case. The connector bus, can we, for example, the connector bus has had a bit of a hit this morning. It is underutilised because it's a great service, and we have heard that the refugees need transport, former refugees. Is there a way to somehow talk to ECAN, get more funding and move it? I mean, I know you had problems with the taxis, because people get the little chitties, half-price taxis, but the connector bus is a hell of a lot cheaper than the half-price taxis for people. Is there a way that we can somehow marry the two together so that the volunteers are not totally hanging about and wasting the time? Make it more of a bus, rather than pick someone up a meth and take them to Churchy Book Barn or take them to the doctors or wherever they want to go. Oh, you see, ECAN are giving free bus rides, aren't they? Well, ECAN, the vehicle is ECAN in Christchurch, or $2 bus fares or whatever they are. I just wonder if we can sort of ride on that somehow.
I know the connector is doing a promotion in the school holidays, because we can take anyone over 14 years old. So we'll do a promotion for to get people on the bus. I mean, it's not a bus; it's just a car. But
it's a car.
Get
It's
people.
a van. Isn't it a van?
No, we now have a car.
Oh, you're in a car now?
Yeah.
Volunteers' cars or your own car?
No, so we have purchased a car.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I read that,
previously we used to hire the community house van. So we've purchased our own vehicle, and we'll use that until we need something bigger.
And I couldn't find in the balance sheet, I couldn't see the contribution there. What's that under? Through the chair to Kevin, what's that under in the belt? I couldn't see it. I couldn't look under ECAN. I looked under Waka Kotahi. I couldn't see the 10 grand.
It should be there.
The community connector vehicle has now been set up as an independent trust, so it won't be in our finances.
No, that's true.
So part of the goal with Leslie is to set things up to be standalone.
So it's not in this thing?
No.
Oh, okay, well that'd be why I'm peering there. The thing my spectacles are not right.
So we have our own trust.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And with regards to the Falls program, I think that's a great program, but if we thought of moving it out, to run it at Lockley or to run it in Terrace View, moving it.
So there's a number of different falls programs. So it's not just
Not just at the EAC.
No, so Age Concern, they run some at up at Methven. I think there's some in Rakaya.
Yeah.
Possibly even out at Mount Summers. So it's just they're not run by Safe Communities, they're run by the different agencies, and we collect all of them in. So they may be run by Age Concern, they may be run by Presbyterian Support. All that information is collected as one.
I just think the world has changed a lot since COVID, and do we have to review our offering and how we offer it?
Possibly.
But that's your department, not
so
my
falls have traditionally been the biggest issue for safety in our district.
It is for older people. A lot of bad statistics around falls. And in response to Lynette's point, and take your point, Lynette, people have to get out and about, but people are still very vulnerable. COVID is still around, and so people have to be sensible. We still have to wear masks every day, so there are sick people.
Okay.
I've done the 10 minutes.
Thank you, councillors.
Madam Chair of Safe Community, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I call forward Kevin and Don. Now, Kevin and Don, we have a slight mechanical problem that none of us have been able to print off any bits of your report or anything, and on our screen from the Great Stella program, we have an annual report as a separate item to the 6 months report. So if you could be kind to us, maybe you take one at a time, if that's all right, please. Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, certainly. Obviously, well, thank you for the opportunity.
It's our council problem, not your problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
I'm asking for your indulgence, sir.
Obviously, we've provided our annual report, which talks about all our services. There's not really the capacity to talk about them all, so I'm really just going to highlight the main things that have been happening over the past time and where the work's been and where the need has been. So I'll just sort of go through that, and at the end we'll sort of address that last bit of the report just around income and finances. So yeah, so it's you don't really need to follow the report. If you've read it, you'll pretty much know everything about what we're doing. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity, councillors, mayor and staff. Didn't see any members of the press gallery.
They're watching from the wall.
Oh, are they? Is it working? Oh, good. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's again, for us, both been a busy and unusual year. COVID has actually had a significant impact on our services and trying to deliver them. We've seen increases in referrals in most areas, but have also had some difficulty providing some of our services due to COVID. COVID's again impacted on a number of activities and events that we would have been able to run, and through a lot of those we do promotion and make connections. And it's also had an impact on staffing, both in regard to we've had issues around vaccination and those sorts of things. So as people can appreciate in any organisation, it's been a difficult thing to navigate. Our organisation has been required contractually to have mandates for vaccines, so we've had to go through that process. And also staff having to isolate. And so over the last 6 months, we've seen a number of staff away from work, and there's always been times when that's been the case. We've also found we've had a number of new contracts over the last year and 6 months, and we've found it quite a bit harder to recruit staff during COVID, quite different from what it had been pre-COVID, and the numbers of people who apply and the numbers of people who probably meet the level that we're looking for. We've found in talking to other non-profits and other organisations in general, in times of uncertainty, often people are less inclined to change jobs and those sorts of things, so we've had to put in a lot of effort and cost into recruiting staff. Another impact that we've felt around our services is that we do rely on volunteers quite heavily in our organisation. We have a large number of them who do a significant amount of work, which has always been one of the great things about Ashburton, getting volunteers. But many of our volunteers are retired people, and due to sickness and isolation and a number of feeling quite vulnerable, our volunteer numbers have been down, especially in services where volunteers go into the homes of other people. So that's been quite an impact, but we're hoping that we're sort of coming out the other end of that and working with our volunteers to make them feel safe and etc. In regard to our work over the past year, a very big aspect has been the settling of refugees into our community. We hold 3 contracts to carry out work in this area that has involved the employment of 10 staff. These are the Refugee Settlement Service funded by the Ministry of Business, the Refugee Health Navigation Service, which we have funding by the CDHB via Pegasus, and we have a post-settlement service funded by Ministry of Social Development to support people once they've had their initial 12 months of settlement. So there's still someone there who can look after the needs of former refugees. A lot of work has gone on over the past year building these services, starting with the recruitment of quite a few staff. And we did have a couple of staff previously, but with no refugees coming, we didn't have an opportunity to build the service. And so we've been building the service, and also working with the community to get the community on board around providing wider support, the steering group meetings and all those sorts of things. Over the past year, numbers have been lower than originally planned. However, we're now getting into the full swing of things. And over the next 12 months, we are looking to settle around 100 refugees across our district. Things are going very well, with refugees settling well and reporting feeling welcomed into our community. So we haven't actually had any significant issues. The area of most difficulty, however, in settling people is the ability to access housing and being able to secure that housing at the right time to meet the dates families are scheduled to leave the Mccannery Refugee Centre. We're aware that this will remain a challenge as numbers increase, although we do have some really good landlords and investors who are very keen to rent to refugees, and we have the same people coming back again and again saying, we've got another house, we'd like to rent it to a refugee family. So, but still, it is a challenge, and we're very lucky to have people like that in our community. As a way to manage the situation, Safe Mccannery has made the decision to purchase 2 transitional houses for refugees. These will be available to families leaving Mccannery, and once here, will work to secure more permanent homes for families to transition into, freeing up the properties for future families. We've already purchased a 1 3-bedroom home in which we're just bringing up to a healthy home standard. And once we've built some capital in this property, we'll look at acquiring a 4-bedroom property as well. Aside from assisting with the housing for refugees, it was felt by our board that these properties will provide security for our organisation over the long term, and should things get tight in the future, will be assets that we can realise. Over the 15 years I've been here, we've had years where things have been very lucrative, and we've had years where we've lost significant amounts of, had a significant loss, and we're looking very much that things are buoyant at the moment, but we think that in the future, as the belt tightens, there might be some tough times ahead, so we see this as a good investment. Another aspect of our work where we've seen increases in work is our court-based restorative justice services for adult offenders. We now hold the contracts to deliver services in the Ashburton, Timaru and Oamaru courts. Whilst offending is not up, covering the 3 courts has resulted in a significant increase in work from previous years, and in particular pre-COVID numbers. Over the past year, we've had 224 referrals in this area. This has also seen a significant increase in funding for our organisation. We've also picked up extra contracts under the Ministry of Social Development to support people affected by COVID. Whilst we'd held this contract in the previous year, funding was significantly increased in the last 12 months to meet the increased need within our district. Over the past year, we've had 294 referrals for families requiring assistance due to the effects of COVID. It's had quite an impact on a number of people, with some very sad stories of how some people have been affected in our community. We also managed to get an extra 50,000 of COVID funding from lotteries in the last 12 months to respond to the needs, and we've used this money to pay for counselling for people who have been affected by long COVID, and we've used this money to pay for programs for young people who have fallen out of school and to engage them back into school. So that's just particularly for those 2 programs. Over the past year, we've also received additional funding within our attendance service to assist with the extra work created due to COVID. Work in this area has more than doubled over the past 2 years. Pre-COVID, we would have expected around 60 referrals per year for non-attendance and non-enrolment in school. Over the past 12 months, we've received 151 referrals for unjustified absence. This service was underfunded pre-COVID, so although we've had an increase, we're still woefully under-resourced and overworked in this area. We have 1 staff member who should theoretically work intensively with 151 students and their families over the last 12 months, which is not realistic. The Ministry of Education is in the process, or the final phases, of a huge review around truancy, so hopefully there will be good outcomes from this and more resources. This is currently, young people not attending school is currently a very significant issue around the country, and a significant issue for our Ashburton district. To have that number of people not engaging in school is quite a large number. We always thought 60 was quite high. Over the past year, it's also become evident that our current offices are no longer large enough to deliver our services. Since moving into Community House 6 years ago, staffing has doubled, and we no longer have the ability to have all our staff on the one site, needing to split them across 2 sites. We also don't have capacity to see all of our clients on site, which has made delivering our services quite difficult, and we're paying for extra rooms in other areas to do that work. Over the past year, we've been in discussions with Community House about securing a much larger office space to deliver our services from. Community House have now embarked on a project to secure a new building next to the current Community House site that will accommodate our needs. As part of this, we have agreed to purchase the current fit-out of that building and cover the costs of the remaining fit-out to make it appropriate for housing all of our staff and delivering services. This cost is estimated at $250,000 to $300,000, so we've been working this year to put money aside for this work. It's hoped that the new premise will meet our needs for the very long-term future. We hope to be in this building before the 30th of June 2023. In regard to our key outcomes we are to meet for council, we have again been able to return a very good return on investment for council, which is in our service level agreement that we're expected to meet. Income from council has remained the same over the last 12 months as the previous 12 months. However, we have been able to increase our income by close to $1 million, which has seen a good return. We've had an increase in our provision of services and programs to the community and have been able to assist a much greater number over the last 12 months and especially support people in that area of COVID. And as you would have heard, the Safe Communities is also ticking along well, the 3 areas that we're contracted to meet for council. We have, normally at this time of the year, we provide our audited accounts within our report for council to see. Our accounts currently in the report that you would have seen in your agenda are unaudited. These are unaudited because our auditor, PKF Goldsmith Fox, is quite behind on audits due to COVID and staff being off, so they have told us they're a couple of months behind. So we haven't been able to provide audited accounts, even though we had all the information to them within the same time frame we have every year. So in the 16 years I've been here, this is the first year we haven't had audited accounts for council, but we hope to have them soon. So that's just an overview of the key things happening in our community and the key things we're working on. Obviously within our report there are a large number of other services that we do which have remained similar in numbers or had increases, or a few that have been tricky to deliver because of COVID. But I've highlighted the main things that we've been working on in our community. So probably I'll stop there looking at the time and ask if there's any questions.
Yes, there is. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And thanks, Kieran, for the great report, all the work you're doing, which is excellent. You've touched on it, and truancy. So I'd just like to reiterate that it probably is, and you are putting a focus on it, because those people, young children who are not at school, are not learning, so that can flow through their lives, our community. So yeah, you need to really put the pressure on to get those kids back in the school so they can contribute to our community as they should. And I think you're probably doing that anyway, but just like to reiterate that. And also, just on the refugees, you got the housing thing sorted, which is great. Employment, how are they going employment, and what sort of employment are they getting into? If you know that. I know you don't hold the contract for it, but I'm sure you watch it.
Yes. Well, I was about to say that we don't hold the contract for employment. The Red Cross does, so that's not part of our work. But we do work closely with the Red Cross around that. I think to date, the kinds of employment that have been offered have been at the freezing works and at tallies. As you'll be aware, the sock factory has also been in conversations around how they can look at employment. So it's still kind of early days, because the people that arrive that have reasonable English are able to enter employment quite quickly, but somebody who arrives and has no English when they arrive does need quite a bit of intervention and support to build up their English so that they can engage properly in employment. So I think there's been several people going to employment over the 35 people that we've had. It's also slightly important to remember that some of our families are also solo parented, and so they might have several children, so some of those probably aren't ready to go into permanent employment just at this stage. Yeah, but it's something we're working on with the Red Cross quite closely.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Kevin and Don. You cover a pretty wide range. On page 8, you've got 26 different agencies. What's the actual number of people employed total?
We employ 35 staff.
35,
Yep.
yes. Second question, on page 40 of your report. Will I just bring it up? I see some agencies, Transition Services 8, Youth Justice 9 for the year. Do those people cover other things, or do you have people, I mean, not even one a month?
Well, no. So Transition works with young people aged 15 through to 21. So when we get a referral, they'll stay with the service for some years, and we get the referrals at 15. So a full-time worker can handle 16 referrals per year because they work with them every week for several years. So it's a very intensive service. So some of our services where we get lots of referrals, we might only work with somebody for 4 weeks. Transition, we work with them for a very long period of time. And so Transition is for young people who have been in the care of the state. And they've identified that without really high levels of support, those young people don't feel well when they move into adulthood, and the state suddenly stops caring for them. So it's very intensive. And youth justice, we like those numbers to be low because we don't want young people to be offending, but youth justice is also very intensive. So every young person we get, we can work with them from between 3 months to 12 months, depending on their level of offending. And we could work with them for several hours a week for up to a year, because that's how we turn a young person around from who's out there causing havoc to being someone who's productive, getting an education and has a future around employment. Yeah, so they are very, very intensive services with low numbers. Yeah.
Councillor Lovett.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, over the years, are your numbers in all these programs, people at the coalface you're helping, are they growing or just statically there? Over like a 10-year period, are we seeing increases in a lot of these?
So you're talking about clients that come to us? Yeah. So it remained quite static in the first several years I worked here, and then we saw a blip after the earthquakes, sort of thing, and that increased a little bit. And in part because some people who moved here needed extra supports, and they made their home here. So probably more the people who were engaged in services in Christchurch, if that makes sense, rather than people who just moved here to buy their home. And so we saw a blip there, and then obviously with population increase, we've seen slight increases around supporting, say, migrants as migrants have increased, but just in line with the population. And so COVID has seen another quite a significant increase, I think, in our service provision. So that's the next blip, I suppose, because it just grew gradually with our population increase and what you'd expect it to be. And yeah, so in COVID, sort of the attendance one within COVID has been quite a significant thing. But attendance numbers across the country have been going up since 2015. COVID's just really spurred them on, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, because the other question I had was, I know that people out in the community are starting to getting a bit worried. We just seem to be having coordinators after coordinators, and a lot of these coordinators are holding hands with other coordinators on activities and stuff. And it has, different ones have brought that to my attention. You go to a meeting and here's all these coordinators, and do they ever do any work? Or are they just attending each other's meetings? And that question is out there, and I thought,
well, most of our staff deliver direct services to clients. Probably our main coordinator that we employ is Leslie, who's probably her output's phenomenal, sort of thing. So most staff are actually working directly with clients.
I think it's in a lot of the other services. They all just seem to be,
But I mean, it's always, we acknowledge that working in partnership is far more effective. So, you know, you just, going to meetings and partnering with people is quite an important aspect. So if you just sit and do your own thing, you can obviously, it's not the most effective way to support people either. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. It's just that we don't have a lot of, if we have a coordinator in the name, really they are working directly with people. So, or sometimes they're coordinating volunteers, which is a sort of thing. But it's a great effective way to get work done with volunteers.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Councillor McMillan, how are you?
Thank you. I know the answer to this question, but I thought you might be able to give us an update on Kathy coming to present to council and asking for a women's only night swimming session. Do you have any updates on that, or do you want me to update?
Well, Kathy's been on leave for 2 weeks, so we talk about a dozen things every day, so
Yes.
maybe you might like to update if you know the answer.
So we had a meeting, Councillor Cameron and I were invited to a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there's some provisions set in place to have a women's only night swimming session. We're meeting this Sunday to just go through the facility and have a look to see how it's going to work. And I think at this stage it's going to be on a Sunday evening, is that correct? 18th of October we'll start and just do a trial to see how we go. But I thought that was a really good outcome of Kathy working with EA Networks and getting something going. Sorry to ask and answer my same question.
That's all right. I used to know everything that went on, but with 35 staff, I actually don't know everything now. So.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. I always enjoy hearing what your contribution is. Just I had a question, and it's just around the refugees. After they've been here for some time, are you finding it easy to hold them here in Mid-Canterbury, or are some of them wanting to whiz off to Christchurch or other places?
Well, the key thing we've found, and we've fed it back to the Ministry of Business around people they settle here, is people with adult children or, you know, late teens or early adult children are not too keen to stay. And I don't think that's a refugee thing. I think it's a young thing, because they're wanting to be in a city where they can meet their peers, form relationships, enjoy themselves, go out and have fun. And I think many young Ashburtonites also like to leave at that age and perhaps come back later. So that would be the key thing we're finding as people in that group. We've had about 3 families who have been very keen. So we've worked with MB and said, we've found that people with young children are settling really well, and kids engaging in school, and schools have been amazing and very supportive, and it's going really well. It's that adult group where we had one family that had a number of girls, and they were sort of like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and they were at that age where they're probably looking for partners and wanting to enjoy themselves, and it's sort of, they didn't have peers in Ashburton, so, but they did in the city, so. Yeah, so that's probably the key little space where...
So it's quite a low percentage.
A low percentage, and very much identifiable in that area of, you know, families who arrive with young adult children or late teen children who have left schooling. Yeah.
Councillor Abraham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, you know, you just mentioned it before regarding looking for housing. You know, you want to get some houses. You're going to be getting on the other side now, aren't you? You're going to be a landlord as well as an agency helping them.
Sorry, can you?
You want to.
Can be a landlord.
You're becoming a landlord as well on one side, and an agency on the other side. Does that work?
Well, it's very common for non-profit organisations around the country to have transitional housing, and the Ministry of Social Development contracts a number of providers for transitional housing. That often sits in the non-profit space, so I think it's going to work very effectively. Yeah, it also allows us to have somewhere so people can leave Mccannery and keep the flow going and then filter them through. So, I don't know, our board's looked at it. It's common for non-profits to own transitional housing. It's yeah. So we're not outside the norm.
Okay, no, yeah. that might be fine. But I mean, you've got people now who've got their houses, are quite happy, have it up to spec and everything like that. You have to do the same as well.
Yeah.
So same cost, same outlays. why would you do it? But
Well, well, I mean, I suppose anybody who invests in housing might tell you that if somebody else is paying your rent, it's a very good investment. So,
that's what I mean. So you're getting into two sides. That is the
yes, yeah,
scary
yeah.
part.
Well, I've always felt that's a strong area for a non-profit to be in, because it helps their, you know, you can be very vulnerable as a non-profit if you have a tough year to having any sort of money. So, yeah. Don might like to comment.
Don, we haven't heard from you.
Oh, well, that's the way it should be, really, Mr. Chairman. He who does the work does the talking. In terms of the housing, Lane, I think the answer to that is we've got a need, we can meet it, and the money, if there is a profit, it will come back into the organisation. So it's another way, I guess, of our providing for our incoming refugees. But also, if it generates money, as I say, there'll be maintenance, there'll be various things to do with the house, but also it will provide an income stream and an asset backing for the organisation. So one of the things, I think I said to you 12 months ago, the organisation was growing. I said I think that we were going to struggle for space. That's proven to be true. We're expanding, so we need to be prudent at the same time and make sure that we are financially secure as that happens. I guess that's the reason. I have every confidence that Kevin and his team will manage this as they do. One of the amazing things I think I've seen in my time with Safe Ashburton has been the expansion and the way it has been managed safely and securely in a whole lot of areas. One of my big concerns now is what happens if Kevin goes somewhere else. So we have to do everything we can to keep him. Having said all that, the board is an overseer, we do the governance, Kevin and his team do the work. We very much appreciate your support. We very much appreciate the support of a whole heap of the community in all sorts of ways. And I think what we're able to report to you at the moment is that we are doing the job you've asked of us, that we are providing for needs in this community, that we are using a whole lot of voluntary service as well as the contracts that we're able to obtain. And so I think we are on a very sound footing and able to reassure you that the mandate you give us, I guess, with your initial funding, we are performing. Thanks to the team, not thanks to me.
Councillor Lawson.
There's a brief question on page 49 under property, plant and equipment. Whereabouts does a house fit then? If you do own a house, whereabouts in your balance sheet is it?
We've only just bought it.
So
it ain't there yet.
So whilst we purchased, we completed the purchase in the last financial year, we are not finalising it until this financial year. So, yeah.
It's just happened in the last 3 weeks. Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin and Don. Very good. Sorry, we have no more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, and best wishes to those councillors who are leaving the table at in the next round. Good. Been there, done that. Good luck to those of you who are standing again.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Sarah Clifford. Now, are we having another guest appearance?
No, I'm not.
You're not involved in this one? Right. I just wondered because Leslie's down here.
Oh,
Sorry?
Well, on my program, it's here. Leslie's here.
Sorry?
You're not the new Liz.
Oh, you're asking about Leslie?
Yes.
Well, Liz was Leslie.
That's why I'm asking her. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The order was reversed.
Sorry?
The order was reversed.
The order was reversed. What does... that me? Sorry.
Those went first instead, Kevin.
Sorry?
Did you bring anything?
Oh, right, okay. Right. Well, this is Citizens Advice Bureau that's coming up, and Leslie's down here on my agenda. So have I got a wrong agenda? Sorry? Agenda says that, you look bloody terrible. I'll remember that.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Sarah from Citizens Advice Bureau. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad Kevin was running late because I couldn't find my car keys. Found them in the toilet. Yeah. Anyway, so I sent through my report. So I just want to briefly go through that. I've got a couple of slideshow information and then a couple of examples. But just firstly, just wanted to talk about the little black book that I've just passed with you. Obviously, that's one of the things that Leslie, so if she would have, she asked me to give the booklets to her so she could pass them out, but obviously she's not here, so I've given them to you guys. So that was really part of her campaign that we did together. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that later. The report that I sent through to you, so our last financial year, this is what today's about, is the last year that CAB New Zealand has overseen us. So as of the 1st of July this year, we are now an independent organisation, which is very exciting. So as part of that, our annual report and audited finances will be part of national offices, and that's presented on the 7th of November, and they are yet to be audited as well. So this is what's going in the audit, in the report, but obviously they haven't been audited either. So we had our little AGM where we presented this. Joe gave a little bit of a talk and thanked people. We have 16 accredited volunteers now, which is really exciting. We've got a fantastic team of volunteers, very capable, very clever, and they're spending a lot of time researching and doing the information and training, which is fantastic. We've got some great support with funding, obviously with the, your funding and support is phenomenal. Community Trust Mid and South Canterbury, and also the Lion Foundation, and also National Office applies for lotteries funding, which then gets divided out into the each bureau. So that's really great there. In terms of our direct person-to-person provision, the first set of data that's on that first sheet on the right-hand column is obviously our first financial year, but that was only 7 months, so just the December to July. So we've obviously had an increase. We've had a few extra months to do that, but yeah, really fantastic. In terms of the difference between client interview and a quick reference, so client interview is where somebody comes in and we have a conversation with them and find out what's going on, and you know, we might give multiple examples and places for them to go to, whereas a quick reference is they might say, I would like the phone number for Fale Pacifica, and we just give them the phone number. So that's the difference between a quick reference. It's just real brief and quick, whereas the interview might last, you know, an hour or 20 minutes and might be quite a lot more complicated, and then a lot more complicated to research as well. In terms of other, so there's a little category of other there. They can be quite varied. So for example, we provided a space for somebody to do a court appearance for Tasmania Court, and they didn't know how to use Zoom and didn't know how to do this and were really worried, and what do they do? So we provided our interview space for the time that they needed to do that. So obviously that doesn't cover an interview or a quick reference, so that's the kind of stuff that's going into other. So obviously the revenue and expenses, like I said, we've had funding from those places. The sundry income has come from the use of our space. We got a donation from Gigs on Wheels, who provided our tech clinic, so they gave us a bit of money for kind of helping us use that rental space in Community House and things like that, and also the Helping Hands booklet that we're doing for Safer Mid-Canterbury. Most of our expenses are obviously employing myself, and obviously premises are the main thing. We have 3 offices and 1 car park space, which we pay for. A lot of the volunteers are a bit older, so having a car park space that's quite close to the door is quite handy. There is quite limited parking around, so it's proven quite valuable. Yeah, and obviously printing and stuff is quite a big thing. A lot of stuff's online now, obviously, so printing off documents and stuff for people that need them is quite a big part of that expenses too. But that's part of what the lottery's funding covers, is that that printing of those documents. So things that we're kind of planning on for heading on to the kind of the next projects and stuff is obviously just that whole retention of volunteers and looking after them. That's quite big, and also the recruitment of any new volunteers. And developing those teams to look after different areas. The community directory is a big area with resources and directory entries, making sure those are all accurate and things like that. It's quite a huge job. So just expanding that and maybe getting a few more volunteers wanting to look after those things. Our opening hours, obviously with a limited volunteer numbers, obviously the more volunteers we have, the more hours we can be open. So next year looking at trying to increase that, or if not, make it a bit more easier to do a late night. Obviously, we've been doing quite a bit of work promoting to other agencies to use our service. So it's really nice to have, say, for example, the refugee service coming to us and saying, "Oh, we've just got a query about housing. What's the rule on this, and how does this work?" And we're able to do a bit of research and get back to them. So it saves their time having to look at this, because it's kind of slightly outside of something that they're into. And so we're just able to provide that. Other groups that we've been able to help like that is Anglican Advocacy, Volunteering Mid and South Canterbury. When they run a few training sessions, they've kind of asked us first and said, "Is this a need? You know, what are you saying? We're looking at running this, session on bullying. What have you seen?" So we've been able to give them some data and some information and just say yes or we're seeing it, but in this area more. So that's been really interesting and quite helpful for them as well. Obviously securing funding for the future is really important, and obviously from this financial year we've received funding from 3-year funding from COGS, and also funding from Community Trust Mid and South Canterbury, so that's just fantastic, really exciting. And obviously the scams project, so with Leslie has been coordinating a team of us, so there's Leslie's led it with neighbourhood support, police and a number of us, and we have been meeting, and that she did a massive big campaign in the newspapers, I'm sure you probably all saw, and so we suggested this book as a good resource out of all the things that we could have, and so CAB kind of sourced the books and provided them to support the project. So it's a really nice way to work together. We can combine all our resources and make a project, for exponentially better by working as a team. So that's really, really great. Doing a project like that on your own, singularly, I just wouldn't have the budget to be able to do that. So we can combine all of our resources and do that, which is great. Okay, so I just put the membership principles on the back there. these are the things that we audit ourselves on every year. So we just have look at, and there's like, this is it in very, very brief format. There's pages and pages and pages of this. So accessibility covers a number of different kind of points that we have to kind of meet certain minimum standards, and then try and make the next and kind of got the perfect kind of answers. So we're meeting kind of all of our membership principles, which is fantastic, and there's a few things that absolutely that we'll work on, so yeah, to make us even better. So just grab the mouse there and just as you can imagine, in terms of people accessing our service, face-to-face in the previous financial year was almost 50% of people accessing our service were coming in face-to-face. That's dropped down to 34%. So I guess what you can take out of that is it's really exciting that people are finding us through phone and electronic means and Facebook and email and things like that. So that's really great, but not surprising. Where are they coming from? Still mainly Ashburton. So we obviously talked right at the very beginning about having a satellite service in Methven, but still I'd say possibly not. I am looking at working with neighbourhood support and volunteering within South Canterbury to do those bi-monthly sessions, but it's probably not going to be, I have said before, though, that they may be from a different rural town and just not saying that they're from, especially if they're coming in to talk about a very personal thing. They might not want to identify that they're based in, say, Hinds, because it might be a bit too identifying. So, our top inquiries, stuff to do with relationships is our top. Conditions of work, consumer law, legal services, illnesses and other stuff, so as with COVID you can imagine, housing, income support, citizen and immigration, courts and neighbourhood disputes. So they're our top 10, which is quite different to taken by time. So the amount of time taken to deal with some of these things, obviously things to do with health and communication and budgeting is the ones that take the longest to talk over and research and give feedback on. And that's just a little pretty picture about that in a different way. This is all the different inquiries we've had, and I'm not going to read them all out, but there's pages of them. We've had numerous different variety of inquiries, from seeking voluntary work to relationship counselling to benefits, you name it, even changing your name. So I just wanted to read out a few examples of some of the cases that we've had. So a client rang up and said that their landlord was kept coming round for inspections. She's got young children and she's really finding it difficult to constantly keeping it tidy for him. Like, can he do this? So the volunteer did a bit of research and looked up some on the internet, on our system, and found out that they actually have to give 48 hours notice for inspections and 24 hours notice for repairs, and that they can only inspect every 4 weeks. So she was really grateful to have this information and to be able to go back to him and have a little talk about that. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. So when on our system, so the public can see this too. So this is what it would look like on our site. So you just put in there in the search engine, what you're looking for, and then this is what it comes up with. And then obviously it goes on to next link. So on the side there where it says next steps on the right hand side, they might be outside of the CAB kind of site, so that'll be kind of consumer protection or things like that. So we've got lots of ways to kind of find the information. So that particular one, is it normal to demand payment for services up front? So the client rang up wanting to know if a retailer could ask for money up front before the product was made. So they were a bit worried. They'd actually paid a whole heap of money and then they were concerned that if this was normal or not, so they just didn't know. They were getting some curtains made and installed, and the retailer had asked for a 50% deposit. So they were just really happy that they were confident that they'd actually paid the money and that was okay to do that. So yeah, that was really good. So a client moved to Ashburton with her son, and he has autism. So she was just looking for any support groups or activities that he could join in, and was there anything available in Ashburton? Another example was a landlord had only just heard about provisional tax and wanted to know whether or not he had to pay it and how he could get around it. So we gave him the website to IRD plus some helpful information on what it meant to be a landlord. We also suggested he contacted a tax agent and ones that know exactly about what he needed to do, and encouraged that it was worth spending money on getting it right. And there's obviously lots of different articles that we were able to access to use that. So I won't go through the rest of them because there's people waiting. So is there any questions?
Yes, I have one. Can I please thank you, Sarah, for having the legal bits. There's 2 young people at work. I've taken them to your legal advice, and it's actually turned their lives around more than what you think.
Oh, wow.
Because they actually now believe the community believes in them. So thank you.
Oh, thanks very much.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you, Sarah, and great to see the numbers increasing. Yeah, congratulations. So it definitely shows that the CAB now is required to be a permanent part of our community, which is wonderful. I had some questions on page 7 of your report. I have 3 questions which you'll be able to answer. I won't hold other people's questions up. One of them is you're liaising with Bruce Moffat, experienced Mccannery, to provide up-to-date information on visitors. Do you count how many inquiries you have with regards to visitors? I couldn't see it on the point.
Yeah, so he comes in nearly every Tuesday, roughly. We have a bit of a conversation and he updates all the brochure materials. So if they come in, it's kind of in the main area. So if people come and take some brochures, we don't really have any, so they can access that when we're not open. So, I mean, that's a great thing, but at the same time, we don't have numbers on that. Yeah, if they come in and ask for something more, like, for example, the main one is how to book transport and buses. Where do I do that, and can you help me, and things like that. So that's the main one.
Do you help them with that?
Absolutely, or refer them to House of Travel for buses. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you. The next one is Teams and Zoom. You know, there's a drop in face-to-face meetings, which I can appreciate with COVID, and people ring you up and make them quote. Are you going to sort of start using Teams and Zoom? I suppose that depends on what the person ringing you up has access to.
So one of the things that we'll be doing, which all the other CABs do around the country, is running kind of information sessions. So we might run something, say, specifically for landlords
on this type of thing.
Yep,
or something.
absolutely, scams. Just you name a lot of topics.
Doing like a webinar sort of thing that you're running. Yeah, great idea. And so that would then, you don't need to go. Can I carry on? I want to be 2 more seconds. That means that you wouldn't need to go out to like Hines or Methven or something and run a little clinic in the hall, or you do stuff like that, or what?
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One more question, and this is my last question. Promoting businesses, I see in here somewhere. I can't see where it is. Also on page 7. Is that promoting 2 businesses? Is that like, I think Angus alluded to it, helping his team? Would that be like ANZCO with people coming over to work and that type of thing?
Yeah, so I've been to ANZCO and other places just to, like, we get a lot of referrals, for example, from the real estate companies. So I'm not sure whether it's a conflict of interest, somebody filling out the application for a rental agreement. So we've helped a lot of people because, especially elderly, because they can't suddenly filling out an online application form and putting your photo on it and putting your, all sorts of different things like that. It's really complicated for them. So just setting up their profiles and everything. So we've been doing a lot of stuff like that with businesses. So just working together, how we can help them.
Well, I'm delighted to see that the CAB sort of embedded now as part of our town. So thank you. That's me done.
Thank you.
Group Manager Steve.
Hi Sarah, thanks for your update. Just from your perspective, where are you seeing the emerging trends coming as we sort of enter into a post-COVID normality, if you want to use that term? Is there new levels of service that are having to be rolled out as we get into that period?
Yeah, some of the gaps I'd say are consumer. So there's nobody kind of in town that helps people with if they've got issues with products or services from businesses. So a lot of our inquiries come from that kind of those issues. A lot just kind of sometimes even know what they want to do, but they just want another pair of ears and eyes to look at something. So that's kind of already existing. So we do a lot of referrals to already existing groups. A number of that is that kind of mediation thing where they just want somebody to come with them to an appointment or something. So we do a lot of referrals to Anglican Advocacy for that kind of next step, which some CABs do themselves, but because we've got Anglican Advocacy in our town, we won't, probably not do that. Some of the other things, I think one of the major thing, and we have set up a bit of a group which Liz and Leslie have kind of co-chaired, and that's emergency housing. It's a real hard one because it's so emotive when somebody comes in on Friday afternoon and has nowhere to live. It's just so hard to be able to, where do you go? When the only place is MSD to pay for it, and they won't help them because of they don't meet the criteria. Like that's a real If you wanted to put some money or time into trying to solve a massive complex issue, that would be one of them. The other one obviously is transport. We have a lot of our volunteers, if it's raining, can't turn up to training session because they need taxis or something like that. So, and there's kind of one or two taxis, and if it's a meeting and there's multiple people attending, that just, so transport's a big issue, I think. And there was one other, but I can't remember it.
That's good, thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Latham.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarah, thank you very much. I like the look of this book. Schemes are becoming more and more prevalent and more serious. How widely far afield are these books distributed, though?
So we ordered 2 boxes. I think there's maybe 300 books. The campaign went into the newspapers, and they've also printed off a like a one-pager that can just sit next to somebody's phone, so that can give them some ideas and things like that. And we've just ordered more because we're nearly out of books, so they've been incredibly popular.
Right.
Really
Thank
popular.
You.
Yeah.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, Sarah, for your report. Just Steve brought it up about the trends emerging, and I noticed up there on the overheads that conditions of work and employment issues were there, and I thought last year when you presented that was right at the top, so it's obviously still an issue within our community, and I don't know how it's addressed or is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we have done some training with Mike Johnson, who provides essential HR support. He's based out of Community House 2 days a week. So he's done a training with all our volunteers. And also he is providing us with an hour or so every fortnight, so we can either ask him questions, our volunteers can ask him questions, or we can refer the client to him, and he'll do the work through kind of CAB for free. So fantastic opportunity. A lot of people just want, say, somebody just to read over their contract and just to say, look, can you just does this make sense, or is this right? Can my employer really ask this? And the same thing with tenancy stuff as well. We're finding a lot of tenants, landlords are putting stuff in, they're finding stuff online, say from America, and going, oh, this would be great to stick in the tenancy agreement, but actually it's non-enforceable. So, yeah, so.
Thank you. So it's not a big message to some of our employers that they need to smarten up.
There is a lot around just that. It's a continuum, isn't it? There's stuff's going on that they're kind of coming to us when it's like quite bad. So, for example, we haven't been paid, and things like that. So, yeah, there's a continuum, and I think if you kind of get in there earlier with a few things, they might feel a bit more supported. And yeah, so definitely something we can work on in terms of some training things to provide for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's mainly around bullying too, that kind of stuff too. So employment, yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for coming along. I think we've run out of questions.
Okay, brilliant.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you very much, everyone.
Jan Cochrane, you've probably noted that councillors are in a talkative mood today. A talkative mood. Sorry? No, you guys rule. Thank you, Jan, for waiting. I won't tell everyone how late we are, but thank you. And the floor is yours when you're ready.
Morena. Well, after working through a template with council, we've come to what you have in front of you now, and we were told to focus at the higher level, which we have done. So I'll just briefly, the first page is really just the basic generic that we give to a lot of people about what we actually do, what our role is in this community, and what Sport Canterbury does for agencies like yourself. First of all, before I do start, and if you get into questions about it, but I want to congratulate Ashburton District Council on their Play, Active Recreation and Sports strategy. It was great this year to have so much involvement, but it was great that it became a community document, and to what you've signed off on, I think is a credit to the team that led it, obviously Steve and his team, but also from the community point of view, they've had a lot of buy-in to it, and it's been a lot of discussion out there, so it's exciting. I know it's in print at the moment, but where we go from there and making it into a working document is very exciting, so congratulations there. Also, the major focus for Sport Canterbury at the moment is, we've heard today about that age group, that rangatahi age group, and that is a big focus for us, to develop a lifelong love of sport, which actually obviously helps towards better health, and hopefully we know the old saying, well, some of us do, children in sport stay out of court. So we have a huge focus in that area at the moment. I guess one of the positive ones that have come out over the strategy, and with perhaps staff change, direction from council, has been the meetings that we've held monthly with your group manager, community service, and the acting facility manager. Providing the leadership to the Ashburton region that has encouraged and has enabled Ashburtonians to lead more active lives, but we've really worked hard together, and from that point of, we've set a lot of regional priorities and plans. We've developed initiatives and became a really positive partner. We have this new reporting document, and I believe when I was sitting in the car, I received a finalise of our contract with Ashburton District Council, Sport Canterbury. So I guess that's been signed off by your in-house lawyer. And we've talked about funding and what that can mean for parties, and especially for EA Network Centre. And then the regular meetings that I have really appreciated is with your acting facility manager. he is in the back. I'm not going to say he's not here. I'm not going to act that he's not here. And I'm not saying it because of it, because it was already in my report. But it has led to a lot of discussions, a lot of program development that is going forward. The positive vibe within EA Networks is exciting. It's absolutely developed amazing discussions, and looking really forward to the next wee while. Within Sports House, every user group is positive and progressive now, and feeling like we listen to. Good morning even is happening. It's just fantastic. So it's really created a really nice atmosphere. So we're not meant to use names, but Steve Ferbish and your team, thank you. I do believe the connection with the community in EA Networks is on a really positive, I'm not going to say transition, but I guess it is, into a really creating the environment that that building was set out to do. So just going on to the major meetings, obviously I won't go through them, but what I have put down in this report is the major meetings, and what that means is that there's 2 or 3 meetings, discussions with those sports groups that are quite significant to the projects that they might be doing. But obviously, like this morning, I've actually had 3 meetings with 3 sports that just come off the street and just have a quick discussion. Those meetings are not there. It's just, it can be something. I got caught in the foyer arriving at work, and it took me about 22 minutes to get into the office. So those are major project sort of discussions, and obviously a wee bit of explanatory there, which you can read about. It was great to yesterday morning have our sports forum come back. We had 25 in the room. It was really awesome to see the people back and wanting to get revived and have these connections and collaborate. I think it is important for our community, and it is important for going forward and hearing everyone's successes or issues or problems. But yesterday, because we hadn't met for quite some time, I don't blame COVID now. And I totally agree with Jeanette's, Councillor Lover, your comment that we do have to move forward. And so we have, and so yesterday was actually bringing people up to date, what we see is really important, but at the end we did have time for some discussion, opportunities and issues. And it was interesting that a member of our community and what they were planning with the sports group, I was aware of it. I asked him to speak to the group so that they saw it, and therefore we were then able to, from a council point of view, it was great that Steve Ferbish was there and could actually hear what they were planning in the utilisation study, because at that stage I don't think many people knew about what these men were dreaming about and what they were going to do with a wonderful vision. We'll leave it at that. I'll talk about the new initiative that Sport Canterbury has been able to locate some money for Ashburton, Mid-Canterbury region. And what we have signed off, it's taken 18 months to run what it was always a passion of mine, whether it's from a coaching background, and my role is to run a level of high people coming into our area and exposing our sports people to a program over 8 weeks to develop them and their knowledge. We often find that in Mid-Canterbury we have our high performance people, and we do have 3 or 4 going to Christchurch to what they believe is better coaching or better information, better knowledge. So this has been signed off by Sport Canterbury now for Sport Canterbury, Mid-Canterbury, to deliver what we're going to call a Rangatahi Development Squad, and we're going to put it out to all sports. So if we get 100, or we get 20, or we get 200, with an association with EA Network Centre, and it is going to cover things like performance innovation, mental awareness, optimising training, performance environments, athlete health and wellbeing, nutrition, motivation and athlete support, which I think is a really good one. It's going to be a theory side of it, and then we will finish off with practical. We hope that we do that. We are bringing people. We do have a couple of local people, but I have actually spoken with high performance tutors in Christchurch, and we'll bring those people in. There was a wee bit of a discussion as far as why don't we just get a van and drive 12 people up to Christchurch, but I want to expose as many people as we can in mid-Canterbury. So as I say, it's been 18 months in the making. Been a lot of discussion. I have met with High Performance New Zealand, and I have met with other sporting codes in 2 other centres where we would like to see that run in Mccannery, and hopefully we'll provide that for our people that want to be. The only I believe from them will have to be, they will have to commit to the program, because it is going to be free. So we have, as I said, secured that funding to ensure that as many children as we can be exposed to that. The other big news is that we have worked with, some of you will know that the Incorporated Society 2022 new Act is out there, and there were presentations in the cities. I worked with Sean from South Canterbury to work with the guy that's been going around all the sporting areas, and we have only secured him on Monday to be here next Wednesday, but that concerned us the short time. But we wanted to have Gordon Noble Campbell, who is chairman of New Zealand Amateur Sports Association, to deliver the session, and the reason being is because he's done so many with the sporting groups and other organisations, has had so many questions, and he has the knowledge and the value to bring it. So he is in Ashburton. Our time was given 4 o'clock, flying into Timaru, out of Timaru, and so Timaru have him at 7. But I was concerned at that time, but as within 4 minutes of putting the email out, I actually had 10 people register, and as of this morning, without looking at my emails, I already have 37. So people do want to be there, which is really good, because it will be about updating constitutions, clearer governance arrangements, qualification of officers, conflicts of interest, disputes resolutions, and transparency and accountability. So where there has been a fear, and I was one of them, I was concerned that could put some people off that volunteer position, which we have majority of in mid-Canterbury with our groups and organisations. Apparently that fear is okay. It's actually not like that. We'll come from national bodies where they'll take out insurances and liability. So that's from there, and that all came from our sports forum yesterday as well. We were able to have a presentation by our acting facility manager, VA Networks, on the Play Active Recreation and Sports strategy, and then we talked about the Balance is Better, which is also in your strategy and lead, and then obviously our Te Manawa funding. Since I last reported, we had the Mccannery Sports Awards, and it was great to take them back. We were limited to 200 people, and we had that. 18 sports represented with 43 nominations, which was outstanding because obviously there is challenge within our region. We bettered South Canterbury. So it was really good to have that, and we have the Volunteer Week. We supported Volunteer Week, and Sport Canterbury Coach of the Month we had as well. I guess the rest of it is self-explanatory with what we're doing in schools now, and our house advisor, you met Anna last time, still has that focus to encourage play and support policy and infrastructure as we come into it. But we have one school that their courts have been taken up by a new classroom build, and we've been working with them to design, I know it sounds funny, but their playground. But that's where it's going. There's so many examples out there, they had no idea where to go. So our role keeps evolving quite hugely. I guess from a disappointing point of view, some of you will know it, some of you won't, but the green prescription, I gave you just a piece of it about that Sport Canterbury lost the contract for green prescription after 25 years. For us, it was a shock. We didn't see it coming. We had no idea. Obviously, their staff been lost in their roles. But we've already stopped the referrals coming in because we often had to follow them through for several months afterwards, and our area was huge in exercise referral. From our point of view, we hope the people that have taken over see the value of EA networks, because we can say that we promoted and had a lot of our green prescription clients going to EA networks for different opportunities in their programs. So we just hope that I can't tell you anymore. It's all going through the CEO of Sport Canterbury, but the focus is towards Maori and Pacifica. And those groups have been told to focus on them. Obviously we did that as well as all ethnic groups. So that has been, I just thought I'd put that in there so that you are aware of that going forward. Going back to the initial of our falls prevention, strength and balance, we have a new person who is in charge of that with Sport Canterbury, and haven't had a lot to do with Lily yet, but Lily does come across as being energetic, really supportive, and yes, we do still carry on with that falls prevention, strength and balance and falls prevention under Safer Mccannery. But just to clarify something stated earlier, that falls prevention isn't just in one spot. Part of the strength and balance is that we do go out and assess what people are doing so that it does come under the falls prevention, and it is a quality program. And we have 22 in this area at the moment that have been qualified, so it's just not been held as one place. Yes, we have certain classes, but they've all been assessed to do that. So from there, that's probably time that you might want to ask questions.
Yes, Jan, green prescription. So how does one go about getting help for a green prescription now? Is it through the GP? How is it now worked?
We don't know. We presume they will follow the same structure, same pathway. We haven't been told any lines of what is happening through the two groups that receive the contract. We are hoping they follow exactly the same, as yet it is not here in Mid-Canterbury, and it is only just, they're still putting their processes in place.
I'll just follow that up with Steve. Do we know how many less attendees to our EA Network Centre facilities because of this move?
Just through the chair as an update, we haven't got those figures yet, but one thing that we are doing with the staff down there, as soon as we know who the main provider is, who the main contact is, how they're going to run it, we're actually going to reach out to them to look at how can EA Network Centre, as Jan said, continue to offer that service. So a little bit early, but we're just a bit like Jan, we're still waiting on that information.
Yeah. Okay, and we remember that the people that were already in the system are still continuing with their programs in the EA Network Centre and other places, but we have had no information update at all.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think Steve might have answered the question, but you don't know who the provider is yet.
We do. It's just been, it was not released for well over a month and a half, and I don't think I actually put it on there, did I? And I just can't remember myself.
Are they an Ashburton-based company, or?
Sorry?
Are they Ashburton-based?
It's through, no, through Canterbury or Waitaha Health, and there are two new groups that they've actually put out to two groups that will work with a major focus towards Māori and Pacifica.
So it's Waitaha Health who's done it, not DHB?
Will it be under DHB?
Oh, yeah.
The new structure. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Any other questions? Jan, seeing I'm in the chair, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you for the extra effort you do as Mid-Canterbury, representing Mid-Canterbury, Sport Canterbury. That I hear of you being around a whole lot of different organisations that you're obviously not getting paid for, and the volunteer work that you do. Can I congratulate you and thank you for that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you for coming in. There's no other questions, so thank you.
I would just like to thank this council for actually progressing what has happened with our facility, and perhaps the connected role that we now have. It's always been a positive partnership, but it's been an exciting few years. But I guess it goes right back. I was looking at cleaning out my cupboards you won't believe this, but I was on the front page of the Ashburton Guardian. I could have bought it, but I don't want any bullying, of myself with Darcy Digby and I think it was Jack Ross at that time, of a vision of the centennial for Ashburton District Council, and we had this cardboard plan, and was it that or to be Berrien Square? We lost it, we went to Berrien Square, but I thought, how great has it been, and where we've come to today, it's very exciting. But I will say that through that time of EA Networks, I too would like to thank those that were there, because I know some of you are moving on, and I wish you all the best. And I do remember Councillor Mackay coming to me in the office, which at that stage I had an office in Midland Seed for over 20 years, where get down, he didn't come to the office, he came back to the office. Where are you? Get down here, you need hard shoes on, I'll give you a hard hat, a vest, and the building would just had its foundations. What did you say you wanted in here? And I said, well, we need a breakout room, we need this. He said, not sure if you've got it. And it was really on the tap all the time, and it was very exciting. But yeah, that seems a long time ago, but it's been really supportive to see where we go now with the EA Network Centre. It's great. Thank you.
Okay, Ashburton Trust Event Centre. Roger and George, would you like to come forward, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Still, is it?
Welcome.
No.
Good afternoon.
Daylight savings will start soon.
The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you again. It's been another kind of crazy 12 months, pretty much like the previous one. Not a lot has changed. I guess with COVID, it's going to be an ongoing process from here on, basically rebuilding, not just from the promoter's point of view of, having the courage to tour again, but the audience participation and coming to events. You can certainly tell, looking at the graphs from the last 12 months, there is a tendency for people not to attend, and the events that we've got currently running, if you took them back into pre-COVID times, you would say they would sell out. Currently, the one on tonight even, we're only sitting around 180, 190 people. So it is disappointing. It's understandable. The age group that we cater to in the theatre is probably one of the ones that's most affected by COVID, and those ones that are probably going to stay away, avoid big crowds. And I think there's going to be a period now of rebuilding. Now that with the government's latest announcement, it's certainly a good pathway forward from there. But it's not going to be a 5-minute exercise rebuilding what we lost over the 2 years. Just with the announcement of back in January, when they went back into the traffic light settings, again we lost something like 31 events, just like that. And a lot of those events were ones that were previously booked 12 months before. They'd booked again, all very keen to come, and as soon as the Omicron variant turned up, they pulled the plug again. Now, I can tell you that there's probably 4 promoters at the moment have said that they're not even looking at touring anything at the moment, and they were regular guys with us. Some of them have started touring again, but they're only doing the bigger city centres, they're not doing regional, which is very disappointing. But yeah, I think it will turn around, they will come back, but there is certainly going to be a period where we've just got to ride the wave until we, it comes good again. Superstar again was one of the ones that was affected. Very, very disappointing to be at a stage where, for the second time round, we had the cast, we had the crew, the production was ready to start again, and we had to pull the plug. Fortunately, this time round, the government had put out what was it called, the Arts and Culture Event Support Scheme, and that was based around supporting events and giving promoters the courage to take on events and put them out there. So we registered very early on with Superstar for that. And when it came to the point, when we got to the point where we had to cancel it, we went back to them, and they did actually cover our unrecoverable costs for Superstar, which was very, very thankful for. Without it, we would have been in trouble. There's certainly a lot of costs. We were only 2 weeks out from opening when we had to pull the plug. So, the production team was well advanced. The lighting was in place, the sound was in place. We were actually on a final wardrobe rehearsal. So, it was very advanced. And, a lot of those costs had already been stacked up, and the government's support grant there covered some of those unrecoverable costs. It basically meant that a lot of the sound equipment that we hire in, the lighting equipment, those providers of that service, they got paid out. And while we probably didn't use a lot of their equipment, the government's take on it was that, they needed to support the industry, and it was done through us as a channel to get that money back to those providers, so just to make sure that the industry still had them at, when things did come right again. So I think, what it did was very worthwhile. There's certainly been a lot of those industry suppliers gone by the wayside, but the ones that we use at the moment, we've always used, are still there, which we're very thankful for. It'd be a very hard job to do without them. Also with that, we also had very good support from the Mid-South Canterbury Trust, who underwrote Superstar in the event of cancellation. So very thankful for their support in getting through that period. With all the doom and gloom, again, there was, some productions were able to go ahead. Variety Theatre were again able to bring a production through, Born Free. It was a great show. It was very well done, and even though it was only 4 performances, it did sell very well. Still not at the level where you'd expect, their shows to be, but it was very nice to have it back in the theatre, and it sort of returned a sense of normality back to the venue, brushed the dust off the seats, and made it all come alive again. So that was very nice to have. Summer Singing School again went ahead this year. We managed to sneak that through early January, which is always a very successful event and very good for getting the kids back involved in theatre. There's always anywhere from 130 to 150 kids involved in those productions, and it's a nice one to have first thing in the year. Some major events that were cancelled: Frozen the Musical, Friends the Musical, New Zealand National Brass Band, Beatlemania, Strassman. That's just a few of the ones that cancelled and still haven't rebooked. So again, I think it's just a wait and see game for them. Technical upgrade, we are progressing with that. We've spoken probably for the last 2 years about upgrading the infrastructure in the venue. There's bits and pieces that we're picking off now and progressing more out of necessity than anything. The funding is available there at the moment to cover it off, so we've basically gone through and prioritised where we think we need to be heading and making that happen now. Things that we've covered off is an upgrade on security system in the venue. There's a lot of people come and go from the venue that requires a fairly stable sort of a security platform around it. So there's been considerable money spent now upgrading that. The other one is a health and safety related matter with the elevated work platform. And just the ins and outs of that. It's every 10 years they have to be basically pulled apart and rebuilt. And it's, to me, it's one of those exercises that is probably, for what we're doing with it, is not, financially it's just ridiculous to me to have to do that. But we have looked at it, and even if we did spend that money, which we've been quoted anything from $4,000 for them just to look at it, plus whatever needs to be, what they consider needs to be repaired on it following that, we've looked at the ins and outs, and it's more cost viable to actually replace it and start again. At least that way it's good for another 10 years. It's not cheap, and it's one of those items that you can't operate without. These days you're not allowed to use ladders above 3 metres, so this thing goes to 6 or even 8 metres. So it's a necessary piece of equipment, and one that we've decided that has to be replaced. The other things that we're looking at is an upgrade of the external lighting for security reasons. And if you remember way back at the beginning, the fly tower, which is the highest part of the building, was always lit. Those lamps stopped working probably 5 years ago, and I think from memory they're about $400 each. So we're looking at upgrading them to LED, and just so we can get that the aesthetics going back on the building again. Seems to be a big thing nowadays, with the biggest building in town being able to light it to signify something. That's the sort of thing that we'd like to get back to. And the other one that we're looking at seriously is audiovisual. Again, it's become a major player in any conference and meeting venue. We have been able to do it through a bit of a number 8 wire mentality, stringing things together to make it work. We have now priced out a system that is more user friendly, and by that I mean basically anyone could sit down, set it up and make it work. And it's also mobile, so a lot of our hire gear at the moment, we do quite a bit of work out at the hotel, so the ability to take something like that to a hotel venue and operate the system, it's good revenue, and it'll be a great asset to the venue itself. Most conferences now either want the ability to have somebody come in via online or through the web, or taken from the conference out to delegates, and also the ability to record the meeting as well. So that's another service that we want to add to the another string we want to add to the bow, and that's been scheduled to happen. Looking further down the track, there has been a lot of work done on where we're going to, what needs to be replaced in 5, 10, 15 years' time. The building is coming up 15 years old now. Again, a lot of it's technically related in sound systems. Certainly the sound system itself was second-hand when it went in the building. But wear and tear on surfaces like carpets, paint, furnishings, that's all now being scheduled into a replacement schedule over the next 5 or 10 years, and now looking into how we fund that, whether it be through Lotto, our own membership base, or the likes of the Lions Foundation and Mid-South Canterbury Trust. So they're not small figures, but I think it's necessary that we start picking some of those things off now rather than it being an accumulated sum that we can't manage further down the track. Repairs and maintenance, again, our friendly pigeons continue to be a nightmare, and again, that's another expense that I hate having. It's probably costing us the best part of $6,000–7,000 a year to have a company come in and try and maintain them, and that's all it does. It maintains them. It doesn't get rid of them. So the accumulation of muck on the roof, there is a health issue there, especially when you've got air conditioning plants sucking air into the building, and so it's something that we're very aware of, and we do try to maintain the best we can, but it comes at a huge cost. And it's not just that, the maintenance side of it's the damage that it causes to plant and equipment. So it's very annoying, but I don't know there's a way of getting rid of it. We've tried all sorts of things and come up with all these scenarios, but nothing seems to work. Our service level agreement, we have managed to meet most of our KPIs within that. National touring was always going to be a challenge, and I'd almost say it will be again for the next 12 months. We were normally looking at having 20 touring events. We managed 6, which is a huge step back. And those events also affect the revenue that we gather. They're probably our biggest revenue gatherers, the touring events, and to drop that many in a year it hurts. To make some of that up, we did ATEC procured events, the Arts on Tour stuff. We pulled in as many of them as we could to keep the place functioning. They are good events. Unfortunately, again, they suffered from lack of attendance. We were doing the open hat nights, but numbers just didn't stack up in the end, so we had to go back to charging, which isn't what it was originally proposed for, but we've got to try and cover those costs. I'll probably just hand over to George now and just go through the financials for it's a draft copy that we've had back from the accountants only yesterday, so.
Yes, well, thank you, Roger, and I won't go through the whole lot, but you, I think, will have received the KPMG account. Page 7, I think, highlights of those, just shows our revenue for the year at 756. 850 compared to 839, so it's down as you would expect. And if you look up at the revenue from goods and services, which is basically what we collect in from our customers and our shows, is 317 compared to 453. So not unexpected, because we were virtually out of business for 6 months, I suppose, but it's still very alarming to have that drop. We survived because of government grants. The 98,000 showing in there, 98,294 form was COVID wage subsidy. And in the donations and fundraising, we also received what was called a resurgent payment, which was a payment to businesses that were affected by COVID, so we qualified for that, and also Lion Foundation grant as well as the council grant. So you can see our model, financial model, is pretty messy, but it's been totally reliant on support through that government funding, which helped us keep all the staff. And I think the good thing about it is we've managed to, with one exception, keep the staff right through the period, and they have all in some shape or form been compromised, because during the heat of the COVID crisis they were only being paid 80% of their normal salary, so they have been tremendously supportive. One of our apprentice, however, decided that he would prefer to work somewhere else, so he has left since, but we have managed to replace him with a reasonable person, so we've virtually got a similar, come through this with similar, and kept those people in place. As far as the expenses, we have reduced them where we were able to. We've ended up with a deficit of 96,000, but you've got to appreciate that in the expenses, there is depreciation of, I think, 175,000 or so, so 175,808. So we're certainly still showing a loss, but overall we have come through relatively well. The next page, page 8, probably highlights where we're at the end of the year. We had 160,000 in bank accounts and cash. We had debtors due of 72,000, and we owed in current liabilities 138,000. There's an item there called other current liabilities, 41,690. That is the amount of tickets that we've sold for shows yet to happen. So what in the bank accounts of 160,000, there is a trust account of 41,690, and we are putting in the liability until the show happens. So the people who are paying their tickets in advance are totally protected with our trust account. We are now keeping that money aside, and when a show is cancelled, we refund the money that's guaranteed, so that everybody gets their money back. The only thing it costs them is we don't give them back the booking fee that is what the theatre gets. So there is a slight loss, but it's a pretty tidy system. The new ticketing system is working well for us, and by us controlling it, we shouldn't get into the debacle we got into with Ticket Direct when they were in business. There's plenty of other reports in there. I don't know whether we need to go through that, but in principle these are still subject to audit. I don't imagine there'll be too many changes, and we're certainly going forward looking at the new year with a budget that should at least be break even, and assuming all the shows sell relatively well. I think the good thing that's happened is that during that period, even though our turnover was well down, a lot of that was generated from local communities doing shows. So there was some quite successful ones, as well as the operatic shows and the Big Little Theatre Company. There's a whole lot of training going on in the theatre continually. So the aim of the theatre was to promote those groups, and that's still working pretty well. It's, if anything, the touring shows that is where the drop-off's been. So happy to answer any questions, but I think that probably covers the broad principles of where we're at.
Councillor Falloon. Thank you. Thank you for your reports. And thank you, George, for having your hand on the tiller over the last 3 very challenging years.
It's not been easy.
It certainly gives me confidence knowing that you're still there and doing it. The only question I have is I'm just looking at your bank accounts on page 13, and I know you've moved the, you've got the management account, you've now got $96,000 sitting with Westpac. Was that previously held with Heartland, or are you in a process of changing from Heartland to Westpac, or what?
Unfortunately, one of the things with the ticketing system was that you can explain it better than I can, but the way it operates, we couldn't continue using Heartland Bank. Their system wasn't up to date enough to work with our ticketing system and all the electronic payments we get. Maybe you can explain.
So PayWave is the operation that uses, how the transactions are made, and it would only go through, it wouldn't go through Heartland, it had to go through Westpac. So it was easier just to transfer everything over to Westpac and be rid of Heartland.
Westpac is Heartland's banking.
Yeah.
Okay. It has been a bit unfortunate for us, because Heartland have been a good corporate supporter for us, but it's just really that at the moment their banking facilities weren't really good enough to cater for the really high level of electronic stuff we have to do with the ticketing system, really.
It was a recommendation made by Heartland to transfer. It wasn't something we instigated. I think we became a difficult customer.
Councillor Lovett.
Just adding on for that, I know other clubs have had to change as well, purely because of the systems. Just thinking about trying to ramp up with, the theatre and stuff. Do you think you need to aim at perhaps the elderly customers, because they're the basis in their community, and try and get some old-fashioned sing-alongs or something to try and get these people out? And once you get them in the door, they'll keep coming. We've got to actually try and appease them somehow of leaving their homes for come out for entertainment.
Oh, I totally agree.
Just something simple would get locals singing and just put on some shows and
like the sing along type thing is certainly something that the elderly enjoy coming out to, and the rest homes love it because it gives them an opportunity to bring them out to something. Unfortunately, between now and the end of the year, there's very little room to fit it in. It is a very busy calendar between now and the end of the year. We were still hoping to be able to do a Christmas concert of some description, but I'm not sure whether that's going to happen. Unfortunately, with the operatic show, with the Superstar, the scheduling of that in October, a lot of the ones that would normally perform in a Christmas show will have just completed that, and I very much doubt whether they'll want to step straight back into doing something along those lines. But that's not to say that there's not other people out there. It's certainly something that we can look at.
I think we're very conscious that we need to get people back there, and there is quite a lot of the community groups that do put on shows, and they are planning to do them again. It's just a matter of when, probably. It's taking a while for everybody to get back to doing them. But Jesus Christ Superstar should be a big event, and it's a real opportunity for people to go to that, and you won't see much better, you won't get much better show than that, really.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward to going to it.
Yeah.
My question was, I see you're dropped 11,000 off your insurance premium. So is that you've taken some higher excesses, or have you insured it for depreciated value, or?
We have been in the process of reviewing insurance over the last couple of years. We've done three things. We initially obtained an updated valuation for the buildings because we were pretty concerned that we were underinsured, and we were. So that formed the basis of getting new quotes for the insurance. We looked hard at what we've got, and we have moved our insurance away from the council promoted insurance, which is with Marsh, I think, and we've gone to Rossbury. The saving in the premium was certainly in the order of 10,000 at the end of the day, was at least a comparable cover. So we felt we had to go there. We were reluctant to, and people from Marsh who we had discussions with were working hard to get a better deal. The tricky bit in insurance, they're all just reinsuring it with various companies, and they all have different ones. Whether with the right insurers or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, we've been happy with the Rossbury proposal that we've had, which has given us a slight saving.
Good work. Having been a broker, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Roger, and for the report. Just think about your pigeons and the old long life problem. Laser lights, I see a few of them around there too. Have you tried them?
We have. It lasted until the first nor'west came through and got blown off the roof.
The pigeon or the light?
Yeah, they've tried everything. We've done poisoning, we've done trapping, we've done, and it does, it certainly gets the numbers down, but they increase very easily.
Okay.
Like the last count he did up there was 120 pigeons. And that was, he basically goes up there at around 5 o'clock. He does exterminate using weapons. But yeah, he counted 120 were coming back into nest for the night. And that's
very good. Well, thank you very much, Roger and George. Thank you, Steve and to Claire. Councillors, on your behalf, I'm going to make a recommendation to staff for the incoming council that the council-funded agencies be given 2 hours instead of an hour and a half timetable, because you all seem to like to get your questions out and your comments made. So I hope you're in agreement with that recommendation. 2 hours at least. Thank you. So I declare the council-funded agencies closed. And Roger, you want everyone back here in 22 minutes, is that right?
Well, according to the agenda, we are due to start